Hi, and welcome to Your Inside Power. My name is Patricia Stepler. I'm the host of this show. And at Your Inside Power, we are working to help you to understand that the powers you have inside of you can help you to create the reality of the life that you choose to live. If you watched last week's episode, we were starting to talk about a book called Your Inside Power by Genevieve Behrend. And in this book, it was talking about how she used her inside powers to go and to be able to study with one of the famous mentalists back in the early 1900s, Thomas Troward. And so we just basically got through the introduction. So you might want to go back and listen to that episode so that you understand where we're going from today. But in today, what we're going to do is take a look at the first couple chapters in this book and figure out how to utilize our imagination and our will to help us to create the life that we truly want. So in the first chapter, she talks about the order of visualization. She says here, if you train yourself in practice of deliberately picturing your desire and carefully examining it, you will soon find your thought and desires come and proceed in a more orderly possession than ever before. So she's giving you the idea that the first thing you have to do is to take time to think, what is it that I really want? You know, most of us don't really take time to discover what we really want in life, let alone to go after it. And so when we really take time and figure out what it is we want, things start to come in an orderly manner to us. And hurry, she says, is fear and consequently destructive. So you don't want to be in a hurried way, but you want to keep involved. So you don't want to put things off and procrastinate, but you don't want to be in such a hurry that, it has to happen today. It has to, come right now. Because when we do that, what we're actually doing is we are inducing fear because we think like we have to have it now. And so that becomes fear, and that's destructive. That's counterproductive to exactly what you want. So she goes on to say, when your understanding grasps the powers to visualize your heart's desire and hold it with your will, it attracts to you all things requisite to the fulfillment of the picture by the harmonious vibrations of the law of attraction. Now, there's a lot there. And I've quoted multiple times the thesis by which Wallace D. Waldo's book, The Science of Getting Rich, is that there is this substance that permeates and penetrates everything. It's invisible. And when you put an idea of thought in there, it has to produce what is visioned by the thought. And that's true. We kind of mess this all up by our thinking and our fears that it won't happen, or by picturing what we don't want to have happen as happening. So what we have to do is have a clear vision of what it is that we want and hold that vision in our mind and accept the thought that no matter what, that's going to happen because that's the law. And then you have to move into the harmonious vibration. So let's just use money because this is an easy example. If you want to earn $100,000 and currently you're earning $25,000, that's a big gap. And sometimes if we want to earn that higher amount of money, we don't really believe we can do it because it's not in our habitual thought pattern to believe that. So while we want to earn that $100,000, we keep thinking and keep in harmony with what's down here at 25,000. So what she's saying here is that you have to hold that picture of what it is that you want. And you have to hold that in your mind and get into the vibration that would be up here where that level is. And when we can do that, then we don't need to worry about whether it's going to happen, because it will happen, because that's the law. And this universe operates by laws. And we cannot change laws. We can work with them or we can work against them, but we cannot change them. So she says here that visualizing is the great secret of success. We have to use our imagination. Now, what happens to us so often is, because we were in school, and lots of times during school, your teacher, if you were daydreaming, might say, I need you to pay attention. And when that happens, we start to think that our visualizing or our daydreaming is not a good thing. And in actuality, it's a very good thing. So we have to keep in mind that we've been trained to think that imagining is not a good thing. And, a lot of times people will say that they don't have a good imagination. Well, we all do. We've just shut it down. So to give you some examples, everything that's created was first created in somebody's imagination. So if we think just of the airplane was first created in imagination. And you can go back to the time of Da Vinci, and you can see drawings that he had of what it might be like to have an airplane. So it first started in somebody's imagination. And then as time goes on, ideas will come. Well, here's the thing. We've not created new materials. We've just figured out how to use them. And that's what any inventor does. If somebody's inventing something, they use what's available, but they've created a new idea in their imagination. Same thing goes for artists or musicians. They create the idea in their minds first, and then they create it in physical form. And that's the way it always happens. But we have to hold on to the idea of the imagination and then hold it with the will. And holding it with the will means just to focus on it, because we become what we think about and we get what we focus on. So we need to make sure that we're focusing on what we want, not what we don't want. So later on, she goes, that you hold the key within yourself with which to unlock the secret chamber that contains your heart's desire. You see, we have it all inside of us. That's why my show is called Your Inside Power. The answers are inside of us. We think it's in the outside world, but it's not. It's inside of us. And she says here, all that is necessary in order that you may use this key and make your life exactly what you wish it to be is a careful inquiry into the unseen causes which stand back of every external and visible condition. So we have to look at what's behind everything. That means we have to go deep inside of us. We can't allow the outside world to control us. And then we bring all this into harmony with what it is that we want. So that may be a little confusing, but hopefully we're starting to see that we have to go inside of us, and then we have to be in harmony with the good that we desire. So a little bit later on in the chapter, she says, in visualizing, you're not endeavoring to change the laws of nature. We can't change the laws. We can work with them or we cannot work with them, but we cannot change the laws. So we're not looking to change laws. We're looking to fulfill them. And your objective in visualizing is to bring things into regular order, both mentally and physically. When you realize that this method of employing the creative power brings your desires one after another into practical material accomplishment, your confidence in this mysterious but unfailing law of attraction becomes supreme. So that's all we have to do. We have to visualize, we have to hold it with our will, and we have to believe. Now, what stops people? Well, first of all, the use of the imagination. We don't have a clear picture. A lot of times we'll say, well, I want to earn more money, or I want to have a bigger house, or I want to have a different car. I want, want, but we don't have a clear picture of it. And so we have to become clear on what it is that we want. And then we make it happen by holding that picture in our mind. And she says here, you have learned that asking and seeking have receiving and finding. So when you ask and you search for those answers, you will receive them and start this substance, this invisible substance that permeates everything in the universe to flow into you. And the pictures you hold in your mind become your reality. So how has that happened in people's lives? Well, I can just say for my own life, my son manifested this whole scholarship for himself, a full scholarship to college, which should never have happened. We were told it would not happen. And it was made pretty clear to us that, yes, he would get some type of scholarship, but would never be a full scholarship. And yet it happened because in his mind for 6 years, all he thought about was a full scholarship. And so when he made that happen, it was like, okay, if he can make that happen, then what can I do? And what have I done? You see, the problem is not doing this, because all of us inadvertently at some point in our lives follow the laws of the universe, and we've attracted something into our lives. The problem is we do not understand how we did it. Therefore, we can't repeat it. So when my son did that, I knew he had caused that. I didn't know how. And that started my search to figure out how he did it. And when I started my search, lo and behold, what I was seeking, what you're seeking is also seeking you. So as I was seeking to find the answers, I found the people that had those answers, and they came into my life. I got a message in my mailbox, and I looked at it. I delete a lot of messages, but something about that attracted. You see, I was in harmony with that message. So I read it, and then I reached out. And lo and behold, I found the answers that I was looking for. Now, once my son had that scholarship, he had some other goals, but because he didn't understand what he had done to earn the scholarship, he didn't necessarily set that next big goal that he wanted and go after that, because he didn't understand the process. Now he does, because I've taught it to him. But what I can see in my own life was a time when I won a diamond ring in a contest. And knowing the process, I did exactly what you have to do to follow the laws. But I didn't know it at the time, so I couldn't repeat it. So I was selling cosmetics, and there was this contest, and I had 3 diamond rings. And, the top 3 people would get one of those diamond rings. And so I allowed myself to follow a process I did not understand. And next thing I knew, at the end of the contest, I got the phone call and I won that diamond ring. And what was really strange is that I had people that had purchased cosmetics from me, but had not really purchased the skincare items. And yet they were purchasing the more expensive things. And I couldn't figure out what they had done. Well, you see, I was connecting with the universe, and I had, makeup parties where people were buying the higher packages. We see the universe was working with the picture I had in my mind. And that's how I won the diamond ring. So then once I understood this process was when I wanted to go from being a teacher to being a corporate trainer. And so as I was going into my classroom each day, I was holding the vision in my mind of being that corporate trainer. And even though the first company I went to rejected my coming into them, that was fine. And then the second company was like, we don't have any openings. Let us know, contact us again in 6 months. That was fine. The third company is one I really wanted to work with. And even though it took months, close to 8 months, I believe, I just kept holding on to the vision. I didn't let it falter because now I understood the process. Okay, so the power within you to form a thought picture is a starting point that we use. So that's where we start. And we start visualizing. And since here's visualization or visualizing is the condensing or specializing power in you that might be illustrated by the lens of a magic lantern. So think of the story, the Aladdin and the magic lamp, and, you rub that lamp and out comes the genie. You see, you have the power inside of you to bring that genie, let's say, inside of you out and get what you really want in life. You have that magic lantern. So you light up your desires with absolute faith that the creative spirit of life in you is doing the work. The creative spirit and life in you is doing the work. You see, we are all creative beings and we are co-creators with the universe. So if we can realize that we are creating the life that we want. But here's the key, and this is so important, so I want you to listen very carefully to this part. Visualizing without a will sufficiently steady to inhibit every thought and feeling contrary to your picture would be as useless as a magic lantern without the light. This is where most people fail in this process, because we allow the worry, the doubt, the disbelief to slip into our minds. And when we do that, we're not holding it with our will. And that's what keeps people stuck. They see what they want, but then they allow every thought and feeling contrary to the picture they want to slip into their minds. On the other hand, she says, if your will is sufficiently developed to hold your picture in thought and feeling without any ifs, simply realizing that your thought is the great attracting power, then your mental picture is as certain to be projected upon the screen of your physical world as any pictured slide put into the best magic lantern ever made. Think about that. If you can hold the picture of what you want and no ifs, no wondering, you hold that picture without any of that occurring in your thought, then you're going to have it in your physical reality. See, the concept's not difficult. The implementation is not easy. We use the will, we hold it in our mind, we get what we want. Sounds very simple. Doing it is not easy. Why? Because we have those habitual thought patterns in our minds that are stopping us from doing that and allowing that to happen, because we've had so many things that, because we didn't understand the process, didn't go right for us. And so then we get back to them. We use our memory. We get back to those and we refer to them. I go, well, it didn't happen here and it didn't happen there. And we allow that to come into our minds. We have to stop that. We have to picture what's in our mind. We have to believe that's going to happen and no ifs, ands, buts about it. That's what we want. And then it can come into our life. And then we have to use faith. We have to have the faith that it's going to happen, the faith and belief. Do you have the faith and belief that it's going to happen in your life? Now, doesn't mean you don't have to work. That's the other thing that people think. Sometimes, and the movie The Secret gave you the idea, or gave people the idea, that all they had to do was to think and visualize and hold the picture, and then it would drop into their lap. No, it doesn't work that way. There is work you have to do, and you have to be willing to do the work. What it's promising you is that the resources and the people you need will come into your life. But and I heard this story someplace, I don't remember where, just as God provides worms for the birds to eat, he doesn't drop the worms in their mouth. They have to go out and do something to get those worms. That's what you have to do. You have to go digging for your own worms. So you have to do the work. But if you do the work, as you move towards your goal and you go after what it is you want, the goal starts to move towards you. But there will be work involved. So don't think that all you have to do is think with your mind and then hold it with your will. You have to do some work too. But you have to have those first two right, because what happens is if you don't get that clear picture and you don't hold it with the will of your mind, then it's all over anyhow, and you're just toast, as Bob Proctor would say. You're just toast because you won't have the faith and the belief, and so therefore you don't change your thought patterns, and it's your habitual thought patterns, your subconscious, that's in control of your actions. And so you won't actually go after those actions because you don't believe it. You believe it consciously, but you don't believe it subconsciously. So she says here, the study of visualization enables you to get more out of life than you ever enjoyed before, increasing the possibilities keep opening out more and more before you. So you keep becoming more, and the possibilities and the opportunities keep showing up in your life. The people keep showing up, the resources, but you have to do something. So we have to make sure that we're going after what it is that we want. So when we do that, and when we start to have some successes, what that does is it gives us confidence. And as we gain more confidence, then we start to go after the next thing. And it doesn't mean that we're not afraid, or it doesn't mean that, maybe we're not ready for it, but we start to move in a confident manner because we know we've accomplished something in the past. You see, when I told you the story of the ring, when I realized and started to understand what had happened and figured out how I got that ring and why my sales turned around and why things were really good for that 3-month period or whatever it was that I was going after that ring. And then things went back to the way they were. Why did it change? Because I was following the laws. What happened after I won the ring? I went back to my former thinking. You see, and I didn't have a focus. I didn't have a goal. I just reverted back. And you see, here's a really important idea for people who have companies or have salespeople working for them. You see, if you could get a salesperson to understand how their mind works and to focus on the goal at hand, and if you could get your whole team or whole company to understand how a goal worked and what's happening in their minds, they could be starting to move like that. And they'd start to knock off one goal after the other, and they would start to reach them. But see, what happens is people don't understand. So then they think they're living in the outside world. And so the first thing that goes wrong, and then they, are disappointed, and setback, and they figure it's not going to happen. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that we do not know the gestation period of a goal. And we do not know what we have to do and how we may have to change in order to accomplish that goal. So those are things that we can't always predict. But if you hold it in your mind, it will happen because that's the law. So Genevieve says here, God or universal mind made man for this special purpose of differentiating himself through him. So this is how you become who you are. You do it through yourself. And she says here, your picture in this same divine substance, this invisible substance that permeates and penetrates everything, in its fluent state takes shape through the individualized center of divine operation, your mind. Your mind is a center of divine operation. We'll get to that in a later chapter. And there is no power to prevent this combination of spiritual substance from becoming physical form. It is the nature of spirit to complete its work, and an idea is not complete until it has made for itself a vehicle. And she says, nothing can prevent your picture from coming into concrete form except the same power that gave it birth, yourself. Nothing, think about that. Nothing can prevent the goal that you have in your mind from happening except you. You had the power to create it. You had the power to make it not happen. How do you make it not happen? By not believing, by not doing anything, by when that opportunity comes, saying, nope, that won't work. You know, I talk to people all the time and I give them an opportunity to work with me or to use some of the systems I use, depending on what kind of conversation I'm having. And they don't take the opportunity because they think it's not what they need. When you understand the power of your mind and you realize how to use this, and I have lots of tools and exercises for people to use to make sure that they're getting the goal that they want. When that happens, you never go back to your life before because you understand the power that you have. So what I'd love for you to do is to message me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm on all those at Patricia Stepler or Patty Stepler, and let's book a time where you and I can talk. And so I can help you to figure out the goal that you want and to build that image in your mind so that you too can start to utilize the powers you have inside of you and become the person you want to be. Thank you for joining me, Patricia Stepler, with your inside power.